Malolelei, tali tali fie fie. We hope that all is well in your world. Welcome to On the Air with B&B. Ko hoku ingoa ko Brian Leiloa, or B1 from Te Hoinga Raukura ki Manurewa, RTLB Cluster 12. Thank you for giving us some of your precious time. We hope that you find value in today's talanoa. Okay, B2, who are we talking to?
Right, thanks, Brian. Whakalofilahi atu, māloelei, happy Tongan Language Week. Yes, today we have our very special guest again, another very special guest, Dr Hinamaha Lutui, who is the co-founder of Southpoint Family Doctors in Manukau City, and she'll be joining us this afternoon. So a very warm welcome and māloelei to our guest speaker, Hinamaha.
Let's go.
Māloelei, happy Tongan Language Week. Welcome, Dr. Hina, to our podcast. Please introduce yourself to our viewers, and most of our viewers are educators in RTLB. And please just tell us a little bit about you and your family, where you're from, your village, just a bit of background so that we can get to know you.
Oh, fantastic. So, māloelei to you all. I'm Dr. Hinamaha Lutui. I'll say my full name because Hinamaha is my first name. It's a family name and it's from my mother's village, which is from Lapaha. And so all the people from Lapaha will go shout out. They should know who I am because it's only from that village. So if you're from outside Lapaha, you don't know that Hinamaha exists. Actually, I always meet Tongans who be like, "Are you Tongan?" So they don't know because I'm not from their village, obviously. But I do have random strangers come up to me and they turn out to be family members, and they'll say, "Oh yeah,
wow.
no, he's from my village." That's how they connect. So it's really important that I do introduce myself as Hinamaha.
Yes.
My surname is Lutui, but that's actually my husband. So my husband's the Tongan
okay.
as well.
Yes.
So I'm actually Palangi, Tongan. My mother's Tongan from Lapaha. My father is Scottish English, and I even say he's the fresh one off the boat because he came to New Zealand on a boat from England.
yeah. Back in the days, back in those days.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in New Zealand. I'm from Lower Hutt, Wellington. I went to good old Nainai College.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I only live up here now in Auckland, South Auckland, for the last, I can say 20 years now. Oh, that shows your age.
Oh, you only look 20. How is that possible?
I've been 24 for 20 years. And so, so not traditionally Aucklander, but it's become my home, South Auckland. So I have a GP clinic with my good friend, Dr. Fiona Shepherd. We started this clinic 10 years ago, Southpoint Family Doctors, in South Auckland, Manukau. We both trained in Auckland. We both went to Auckland Medical School, and then we both went to Middlemore Hospital. And obviously, both being Pacifica, we always wanted to work with Pacifica people. We wanted to work in South Auckland and basically work for our communities. So that's a little bit about me and where I'm from and where I'm at.
Oh. You've answered a lot of questions there.
No, but if people want to know about you, they can go to your website because there's a whole bio on you and also your team, your colleagues as well, isn't there?
Yeah. We started off a very small number in the beginning, to be honest. There are not a lot of Pacific GP clinics in the entire country. In Auckland, we have got 7 GP Pacific providers across Metro Auckland, and I think there's only about another maybe half a dozen for the rest of the country. So there's not a lot of us who are working in health, let alone in general practice or as owners, to be honest. So I think GP numbers, I think there's only about 90 odd Pacific people who are GPs in entire New Zealand. That's a small number. So there's not a lot of us. So we tend to be quite tight. So a lot of the Pacific providers, we tend to work together, collaborate together for community events and things. And the small Pacific doctors do get to know each other quite well because there's not many of us, so we have to all work together. And as we know, there's a lot of Pacific people who are not Pacific providers because I said there's only about a dozen of us across the entire country. So it's a lot of our Pacifica people in the community who are with non-Pacific people. Yep. And so, we've all got to work together to help, our Pacific people with their health and well-being. And as you guys all know, our health is not just our physical health, it's what's happening at home with our family and our kids or our parents, our aunties, our uncles. It's the whole extended family as part of our well-being and health, not just the diseases that we hear about in the social media, But as doctors, that's what our job is to help with the physical sort of side of things and the mental sort of side of things. But we're also realizing actually we have to approach it in a holistic way. And that means we also have to work with others who are part of health, but don't realize they're part of health. They're on the fringe of health. But we all work together to help someone be healthy, and support their well-being and their, as an individual, as a person, as part of family member and the wider community.
I know Brian's going to be angry with me because I usually go off topic here, but this is actually quite important because I also saw on your website that you actually use the Te Whare Tapawhā model and the Whanawhale model. Is that correct?
Yes.
When you approach to, that's the approach that Southpoint takes when you're working with the community, which I think is a fantastic approach because I think educators as RTLB, we also take that model approach as well, taking that holistic point of view, which I think is really been, it helps our community to understand, that we actually are trying to provide them with the service.
Yeah, that's right. And not every service is exactly the same either. They're different, like from one Pacific provider to another Pacific provider, and also helping our non-Pacific providers understand how to work and connect and engage with our Pacific people to help them with their health and well-being as well.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Okay, Hina, can I just go back a step? I know we're going to talk about being a doctor and all that kind of stuff, but just thinking about the fact that it's Tongan Language Week, how do you celebrate Tongan Language Week? What do you do for Tongan Language Week?
How do we all celebrate besides the language? We did have a big lunch here yesterday, I will say. Our team, we have got quite a few different Pacific people working in our clinic, so obviously we celebrate each of the different language weeks as they come up, but obviously, as you said, it was Tongan Language Week, so our Tongan staff have been sharing words, and I've learned a few new words this week that I didn't know the meaning of, so I'm always continuing to learn my language. I didn't grow up speaking my language. I've got better as an 8. I always say my understanding's better than my speaking. Yes. But it's always amazing when you see the kids coming through, and they can speak their own language. It makes you so proud of them that, that they can be bilingual and still be in touch with their culture and stuff. But we also have to remember there's kids like myself who grew up, didn't quite knowing all the language or all the cultural things, but you're never too old to learn. And you're never too old to share. So my staff who do speak the language, they've been sharing with everyone here in the clinic, and they also shared a lovely meal with us yesterday, and we were also trying to be really health conscious, so we didn't bring in a pig this year.
Okay.
As Tongans, we like those foods, but we shared some of the other things that we also eat, and those common amongst our other Pacific nations as well. So it's being open, I think, to learning language and cultures in general, but for this week it was Tongan Language Week, so that's what we shared.
Lovely.
I'm just thinking, I know schools do it really well. Do you think organizations like NGOs, other organizations besides schools, celebrate our language weeks more so often than usual, than before in the past? I know that my sister came over a couple of days ago and they says, we celebrated Tongan Language Week, and she works for Block Gases, which is a private organization. So I'm just wondering whether, is it really getting out there now?
I think it's getting a little bit more. I think the schools have, especially in South Auckland, I think they definitely have allowed that to be more visible and to non-Pacific communities. The whole Polyfest, Pacifica, and the language weeks. It's definitely promoted in health. So a lot of the health organizations definitely celebrate and have been for a while. I would say for myself, from a younger point of view, I was probably not aware of it as much. I think it is something more that I've noticed a lot more in the last 10 years, to be honest. And obviously part of your well-being is, knowing who you are, connecting with your identity, and some of that is knowing your language, some of that is knowing your culture, where you come from. And so those things are really important that we continue to grow that, making it normal, to speak a different language from the mainstream.
I think that's bang on. Dr. Hina, your parents, your family, they're all proud of you for becoming a doctor. Tell us about your journey into choosing that profession. Why did you decide a career in medicine?
Yeah, you want the short story or the long story?
Oh, well, we've got an hour.
We'll have either story.
We'll have either story.
I think it's interesting because, I mean, it started quite young, possibly, as thinking that, that was something I'd want to go into, but not actually thinking it was real, to be honest. Yep. You know, there's no doctors in my family.
Okay.
There wasn't any doctors except for my own GP that we had when we were a child, growing up, who knew us really well from when I was little all the way up until I grew up until I was about 20. And he was a really good influence. There's two parts to it. So I always like to tell young people that, you know, it's going to sound really funny, but failure is a good thing as long as you learn from it, you know, and you grow from it. So when I first went down to university, I actually went to Otago first, thinking maybe I want to do medicine, but didn't actually really have any clue, to be honest. And it was kind of a little bit of first time, being away from home. You're 18, you think you know everything. And so it was a very good living experience, but to be honest, I didn't have the grades, and I actually went on and completed a degree first in sciences, and I was put off a little bit because I think there was a little bit of me said, oh yeah, maybe I'll do this as a career, but I didn't really have a lot of other people, mentors, or knew how to go about it. But I did have a lecturer who didn't know that was something I was thinking about, but for some reason told me that I wouldn't ever get into medicine. And that actually was a turning point of turning me off, to be honest. I was like, no, okay, then this person's telling me, and they're, you know, pretty up there in the education world, that this is something that I can't do. So maybe I've got it wrong. I'm not going to do medicine. I'm going to try to do something else. And so I was also really good at like commerce and things. So I actually went off and did another degree.
Oh, wow.
So I could have been an accountant.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm always telling people it's all right to try things and work out what you like. So funnily enough, I ended up finished at Otago, went to Victoria and Wellington. So I've actually university hopped as well across the country.
Oh, wow. Good on you.
So went to Victoria, but that's also home. So went back home, you know, got the old folks saying, what are you up to? What are you doing with your life? You know, all right, you want to try this, go ahead. So I did. I went off and I tried commerce, did my accounting and degree, graduated from that, started working in administration, but realized I didn't really like this.
Okay, fair enough. How many years?
I was like, this is not what I want to do. I like helping people. I knew I liked helping people. But and I was helping in the finance things to get people loans and stuff, but wasn't really helping me, I guess, spiritually, I guess, as a person. It wasn't growing me. I was getting bored. But about the same time, my mum's GP actually retired. And so we'd had him since I was little. His name was Dr. Douglas Wong. And he'd had me since I was like basically a baby until he retired. And my mum's got diabetes. So she needed someone who always is going to regularly check in on stuff. And so there was a period there where she didn't really have a regular GP. And they got a lot of confusion at the GP office, which really frustrated me because we knew that she was taking her medicines and doing everything for herself at home. But the message we got from the clinic was that my mum was non-compliant, not doing it, not, you know, following up. And we're like, what? She goes to appointments every 3 months. She gets her medicines every 3 months. What do you mean? You know, so there was this disconnect. And it's because there was a difference in the way general practice was going at that time. So that was roughly about 20 years ago. So you had the old school GP that I was very much used to, who knew your entire family, you knew your mum and dad. And I vaguely recall an after hours call at some point when I was a kid to these very fast track general practices that were in and out, didn't know who you were, didn't understand the background of the families they were working with. And I think that was a trigger to me, one, not liking what I was doing as a career at that time, going, yep, definitely not accountant material. And then two, going, there's a need here. You know, and I like helping people and I like helping my family. And I always had an interest in science, having already done the other degree. So I decided when I was 24, 25 to go back, give it a go back to Auckland. So I went to Auckland this time. I decided I'm going to try somewhere new.
Where haven't I been yet?
You haven't tried that one. But it was also, it was a little bit more of a clean state. And I guess going back as an adult student, I was very focused. I was more like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it a go. And if it's meant to be, it's going to be. But if it's not, then it's not. But at least I gave it a go. And I knew I truly 100% gave it a go. Whereas when I was 18, that first time, I probably could say, no, I don't think I had the mental maturity. Now, I'm not saying that young people can't do it, because actually, as a adult student, when I went back 24, 25, I did have a very good colleague who was only 18, and she's an amazing doctor, and she was very focused, and she could, she really at that time knew what she was going to do, but not everyone's like that. Some of them are like me, weren't quite sure, a little bit fluffy, and have to have a little bit of life. And so we do see that a lot with some of our Pacifica and Māori doctors. We're actually more mature students, or we've had a lot of lived experience that helps us to focus on our goals and where we want to go to. Because it's a long haul. It's not I always say anyone can do medicine, to be honest. When I talk to the young people who come into my clinic, I say anyone can do medicine. But the problem is you need to be disciplined.
Yes.
6 years from the beginning. And for a lot of our Māori in Pacifica, we don't come from backgrounds of people who've worked in health or who are doctors or lawyers and whatnot. And so often our families don't understand what we're going through. There's, it's quite stressful. It's good that you get to form these lifelong bonds, though, with your other colleagues who do the same journey with you. But I can say from my point of view, from my Pacifica Māori friends who we all went in together, we are still friends and colleagues and support each other now, even though we're out working for the last sort of 15 odd years. So you really do build that lifelong friendship, because the struggles you've been through, one as a Pacifica or Māori, and trying to still stay connected to your family and your culture and stuff, and then two, the other side, trying to actually get through the program, and the volume of work that you need to get through to become a doctor. But I always say to young people, if this is what you want to do, it's good to find out pathways of how you do it, but don't be hard on yourself if you fail. You can go again. So I've got colleagues who didn't get through the first time, like myself, who went again after they were graduates. I've had colleagues who've gone through degrees, then masters, and then applied. And then again, as I said, I had young friends who got in straight away, who knew what they were doing, and that's fine. But one of the things I do say is, it's okay to fail as long as we learn from it and, and we move forward. I've had colleagues who thought they wanted to do medicine and then realized it wasn't actually for them. And that's okay as well, because there's so many areas in health that we need Pacifica Māori people to be working in. Because as I said right at the beginning, there's not very many of us. So every little one that we can add into it. And it's
90 is such a small number.
And the other thing is, and it's not about, remember, the physical health anymore. If we talked about that holistic picture, we need people working in all those areas to help support health. So we need nurses, we need physios, we need dentists, we need ophthalmologists, your eyes, we need audiologists, we need occupational therapists. So we need all those areas, not that, you need to be a doctor, which sometimes is, we know Tongans, we always say doctor, but it's actually, there's all those other things outside of just being a doctor that is really important for our well-being and health, and for us to be able to work together collaboratively, because we know for our people, especially those older generation who speak the language or whose English isn't very good, it is important for them to be able to interact with people that can speak their language or look the same, or be able to connect together, even if their main caregiver isn't of the same cultural language, but they have that good understanding so that they can work together with the family and the community. Sorry, I get so excited.
Awesome.
I'm like,
no, this is what we want to hear.
I encourage young, the young ones, they can do anything they want. And it's okay if you we've all got many roads in life, and some of us take a little bit of windy roads and a few hills to get where we want, but it's up to you if that's your end point, like how look out for people who could help you get to that end point in that journey, to support your own. You might have some, bus stops or
no.
But you can get in the end.
I always find that part of the problem is that maybe some young people are not exposed to enough positive role models from their culture. So sometimes, they just list off, there's a few things that they're going to be a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer or something, but they're not really exposed. There's so many different career paths, like you say, even in health. So what are some of the celebrations from being a doctor, do you think?
I just get joy out of helping people. So being a doctor is a bonus because in my role, I get to help people. I mean, if they're sick and unwell, to obviously heal, but also to share knowledge. So I think also being as part of my role as being a doctor is actually to help people to understand what's happening to themselves, what's happening to the body, and how they can help ourselves. I always say to people, our Pacific and Māori, we were really healthy, strong people at one point in
Yes.
time. We don't even have to go that far in history to
Yeah.
have evidence of how healthy and well we were. And the environment that we live in now has changed the way we behave, changed the way that we
Yes.
look after ourselves or work with other people. But we have the power within ourselves to keep ourselves well and be healthy, and we can get that back. And so I guess, I'm always about sharing is caring. And
Yes.
so even though my job as a doctor, it's about sharing that knowledge. And so I guess even in my clinic, as you, if you've seen the website, we do have a lot of Pacific staff, but we also have a lot of Pacific staff who are not what we call registered, though we call them GP assistants or kaiawhina, which basically means they're a non-registered workforce that haven't done a degree in health, to be honest, but they had an interest in health, interest in serving, interest in helping. And we've actually upskilled them to work in health in our clinic to do things that that are almost like a nurse, to be honest. They can do blood pressures, they can do blood tests. Obviously, they've gone training, they've got certificates and stuff. They can do CPR. And, our patients love them, because they can also connect to them because they're seeing people that look like them as well and can explain things to them in simple language. Because, sometimes as a doctor, you have to learn all the medical jargon and stuff, and then you have to remember to bring it back down again and go, what is the everyday language? And sometimes when you're so busy and you're seeing person after person, you forget, and you need to be up here and you need to be reminded to come back down and, hey, talk in a language that everyone can understand. And what does that mean for them as a person? Or what does that mean for that household? Because it might be there's one individual person who's unwell, but it's the rest of the family supporting them. And how do we help them to be able to support that person and keep them well? So I get a lot of joy out of teaching.
Same.
I love it. I love that word. I just love that word you mentioned.
Yeah.
the word you mentioned,
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I love the word that you mentioned, kaiawhina, because some schools use it, but and they use it and they translate it as mentor, which is really interesting. They become mentors for our students, which is a lovely word. I just love it. Dr. Hinamaha, the challenges up to this point in your time, what were some of the challenges you've faced in the medical practice?
So before getting into medicine or during my training, or do you mean once I got out the other end?
Probably the most significant challenges you've actually faced going through the medical profession from the point of training to where you are at this point.
Probably not just for me, but also for, I guess, a lot of what our Pacific and Māori face is the biases in the system. And that's throughout. That was throughout my education, that was throughout my training, and then even as a doctor working, seeing the biases occurring to myself, but also to my patients and what happens to them in health.
Do you call it unbiased racism?
Yeah.
A lot of unbiased, unconscious
bias, racism, and based on racism, So when you're training and you don't have anyone else to sort of guide you and stuff, and people say things, that blatantly racist, to be honest, sometimes, and you have to learn how to deal with it. And you don't always know how. And these are sometimes people who are supposed to be teaching you, you know what I mean? And you're like, okay, how does this work?
Exactly what you mean.
Often there was times that I was thought to be the orderly or the cleaner when I was in hospital, but clearly I was taking bloods out of your arm. Okay.
What kind of cleaner does it?
Yeah. So
isn't that an awkward moment?
Yeah. So I mean, and the thing is, we all carry that unconscious bias, even myself. I have to keep myself in check and make sure, am I doing everything for this person in front of me that they deserve and need? and not because I've switched into automatic mode, because you are trained in a very Western world of medicine and stuff. And even though you carry with you your ancestors and your culture, and for those who speak, you have been taught in a certain model. And so when you come out, you have to be able to flex in between that model and going, what is going to work for the patient that's in front of me, or the family that's in front of me, or the community that I'm working with. And some of that Western model doesn't work. And that's why we say we like to look at the holistic sort of picture. So I've got patients who will come in sometimes and they've used some sort of leaves for the boils, but it's actually worked. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't need anything from me. You're
The work's good.
Other times I'm like, well, I'm glad you came in because it's not working anymore. You know, so it's having that balance between them. But again, that's still education, isn't it? That's still about sharing knowledge. I'm learning from them what they've used that has helped with minor injuries and trauma and stuff. And then they now know that they can come to me quite safely and I will treat them appropriately if it's needed or not, you know. So it's that balance between giving too much and holding back, because sometimes it's not needed. Sometimes it's just the conversation rather than the drugs or you know, the prescription that we can give. So I think that was probably the biggest challenges, is, you know, facing that racism directly, facing it indirectly, but then also seeing it when you're a clinician in others or in the system itself. You know, when you know you've referred a person and they've got all the criteria and they should be seen, they're not getting seen. Why aren't they getting seen? And then you flicked another referral with somebody else and suddenly they got seen and you're like, what was the difference? And then you can clearly see there was some sort of racism in that triaging of that referral. And so you have to advocate for the patient. So that's what I love about it. I love advocating for the patient, but also teaching, because there's a teaching clinic. So we in this clinic have training nurses, we're training medical students, we've got house officers, so the doctors who are working in the hospital who come out into the community for a little run. And then we're also training doctors who have been doctors in the hospital who want to become GPs in the community. And so that's one of the big things I do like to train them on. It is on the unconscious bias in the system, and that we all carry it, and that even I carry it, and sometimes have to catch myself, and that I train them to catch themselves as well, so that we can reduce those barriers for our patients.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Full disclosure, Ben, Southpoint Doctors is my doctors. And that's my wife's fault. And when my wife was looking for a doctor, she said specifically that she wanted a Pacific doctor. And then, Southpoint is fantastic. You've touched on it a little bit, Dr. Hina. Could you just tell us a little bit more about what was your major reason? What was your decision to start Southpoint? And tell us a little bit about that journey of getting together with Dr. Fiona and starting that.
Yeah, so interesting. So Fiona and I were both, I'm going to call it fresh junior sort of doctors in the community at that stage. We were training to be GPs, and the clinic that we ended up purchasing and taking over and becoming Southpoint belonged to one of our mentors, actually. So this lovely Māori doctor in Papakura actually owned the clinic, but it wasn't actually viable. So it was dying, to be honest. She gave us the opportunity. She said, you know, you two young, fresh out of the hospital system, you want to work in the community. Would you like to purchase, the clinic? And so that's really how it began. So Fiona looked at me and we like, we love working together. Yeah, we're going to be in South Auckland. Yeah.
So awesome.
I had no idea what it entailed.
Collective minds.
Because we always knew we wanted to be in South Auckland. So we'd been training in South Auckland practices. So we were at Beta Drive in Mangere. We were at Te Pina Te Ora in Papakura. We were in the old days, it was called Manukau Family Doctors, the one that's next to Middlemore. So we always wanted to work in South Auckland. And so when the opportunity to buy a clinic in South Auckland, we're like, hey, we could do something different. To be honest, we were clueless. We had no idea what was involved.
Sometimes that's a good thing.
We're still learning 10 years on.
Dr. Hina,
wait. Dr. Hina, do you do your own accounting? Sorry.
No, because on their website they've got someone over there.
Thank goodness we have our finance and accounting person.
That's so huge. I know you've already touched on that there is still a need for Pacific medical practitioners. Do you think secondary schools do enough to promote health pathways for students at college level? If you reflect back on when you went through school, was it talked about much?
Definitely not at my school. Sorry, Nai. There wasn't really something talked about back then for me. And I don't even think it was an option really, because even if I look back at my school, there was very few that actually ended up going into medicine. I know of another colleague who did come out of the same school, but he went through the similar journey and doing a degree first. And I think it was possibly that, we didn't know. There wasn't actually a straightforward roadmap. You know what I mean? There was no one sort of saying, this is how you could do it. I do know they're doing a better job here now in Auckland in the last couple of years, because with one of my roles, I got to see what they're doing at Te Wharaora or Health NZ, where they're trying to do more of that integration into schools to promote health as a possible pathway for young Pacifica people, and they've got a specific course I think that they do, but I don't know all the details. So it definitely wasn't something that was promoted a lot when I was at school at all. And there were very, very few from the school I went to, but we also know that happens here in New Zealand, isn't it? Like when I went from Wellington to Auckland, I didn't know about all these different schools that are up in Auckland, and as we know, there's quite a few that come from a certain couple of schools here in Auckland that all seem to get into medicine, and then it's very real to get someone who you can still, because I've got my colleagues to prove it, who come out of Otahu College, who come out of Maangere College. So you can do it. They do do it, but not in such huge numbers as there would have been in some of the other schools that maybe did promote it a bit more as a possible pathway, or who came from naturally the backgrounds of having mums or dads who were doctors and lawyers and stuff, and so they had people who knew how to guide them through that pathway. So I think there's more to be done. I do know with Auckland, and now Otago's a lot better. They do have like a Pacific Māori support for Pacifica Māori to go through into medicine at Auckland. I was part of MAPAS, Māori and Pacific Admission Scheme, so they got us all together so that we were all knew that we were trying to go to medicine or one of the house fields. And so then, one, we got to know each other, two, we could support each other, but also had some mentorship from that point. So I make it sound like I didn't have that much, but once I was in medicine, and I know, and I should shout out to my old old clinic, some of the Pacific doctors were really trying hard to connect with those who had an interest in health to guide them on the way to get through. So I know that for Dr. Fiona and I, one of our mentors, he reached out to us when we were still at medical school to try and connect, to say, hey, this is a possible pathway for you guys if you're interested. And then he reconnected with us again when we were actual doctors, junior doctors as well. And so I think those kind of things do definitely help if there are programs in place that let us know that this is a possible opportunity, that this is something that we can do. Because if you don't see it, you don't know, if you don't know what you don't know, but if you don't see that that's a possibility as a career path, then you might not choose that career path. So I think that probably is part of why we don't have as many numbers as well, because we're all kind of new to it. Yeah.
I think you are right. I think Auckland schools are promoting it a lot more. I know for certain that a few schools that I've worked in, they've got career they invite the career advisor, advice, all these organisations to come into the school and talk about it. And I know for certain, definitely one of them is in their health sector. So it is. I'm not too sure about across New Zealand though. Across Aotearoa, not. Yeah, that's another story.
So Dr. Hina, thinking about all the Pacific people who are in health now, what are some of the strengths that you think Pacific people could bring to being a doctor, let's say?
Well, I mean, besides the obvious for those who are lucky enough to be bilingual, bringing their language to it. Yes. And bringing their cultural identity with them, having an understanding of the populations they're going to work with. I guess in New Zealand, we know the health data and statistics that say that Māori Pacific have the worst health outcomes. And so we already know we're working with the people who are already a little bit sicker than the rest of the population. But to know their background, where they come from, how to work with them, and he can get quite easy, and this is what I said, so I'm not going to check myself. He can quite easily go into that medical model of I've got to fix, I've got to treat, and actually we're moving away from that. And that's what our Pacific and Māori people bring, because we already understand it's not about just giving you that Band-Aid, just giving you that tablet, just giving, you know, that your health is more than that. And I think that's what our Pacifica and Māori people bring to being health professionals, but also sharing that knowledge to our non-Māori Pacifica colleagues, so they too can work with our whānau and family.
Absolutely.
For their well-being. So I think, you know, as you know, it sounds really funny, but you know, always comfortable when we're with people that kind of know, who have similarities to us. This is how we make friendships, no matter what background you come from. If you share a commonality, that helps you to connect, that helps you to have better communication. And so I think that's, so that's all part of it, I guess.
You think building relationships is also equally important of the way do Pacific people bring that sort that natural ability to connect with people and relationship? Would that count towards helping our community out there?
I think definitely it does. You know, like I know, like, you know, I'm Tongan, but if I go into a Samoan event or a Māori event, but I bring my Tonganness with me and I, you know, identify myself as Tongan, but I also acknowledge the background that they come from, you know, that they're Māori or they're Samoan, you find that you connect a lot quicker because you know, we're both from this background. We both know we're different. We have similarities, and that helps us to connect a little bit faster as well. So it's the, I guess, sharing of something that's similar that helps with forming relationships and communication. Especially when there's not that many of you as well.
Yes, totally understand that part.
It's the same in our job. There's not many of us as well.
There's not many of us. Yeah, we got 1,000 RTLB and there's only 35 of us Pacific that are
across
Pacific,
New Zealand.
And so, you know, you guys get together, you're all sharing ideas, you know, maybe when you're going back to your other colleagues, again, you're sharing your learnings from your background and then what you've learned from your other friends as well. You know, and so it is all about, as I said, sharing is caring.
That's right. We're actually sharing with our non-Pacific colleagues. That's why we've created this space.
If there's one thing Pacific people can do, it's create networks. So thinking about a network, and full disclosure, Ben, I'm a member of this too. The Pacific People's Health Advisory Group. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what your role is with them?
There's a long story too.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's not straightforward. So I'll do a little bit of a background to it if it makes it a little bit easier.
Sure.
Is obviously being part of a GP clinic. We also belong to a primary health organisation that helps to look after a group of clinics together. And at that time, health is always about evidence-based, and to get evidence, you always have to have research going. And there's not a lot of research out there for Pacific people and families and things. And so the PHO at the time decided that there was a bit more story to it. I'm simplifying a little bit here. Is to bring together some of the people, doctors and staff in primary care who work with high numbers of Pacific people, with actual people from the community who, you know, who identify as being Pacific or have Pacific in their household, to work together on research projects related to health, which came from the people from the community. So Pacific People's Health Advisory Group are actually people from the community who may or may not have health, but have family members who have had health issues or not. And basically none of us had any real background in research, to be honest. But we all have an interest in being well, and you know, we all have an interest in our family, and we also have an interest in health. And so it was a really interesting idea to bring these two different groups together to say, well, what is important in health for, you know, for you? Is the simplest way I can say it. And the group came up with lots of discussions and workshop with a couple of health related questions that they wanted answers for, like why I'm happy for me to tell the two research questions. Basically, one was around gout.
Yeah.
You know, why do Pacific people have gout, and
Yeah.
why, you know, how do we take them to get medications, or why are they taking medications?
Right.
Because there's such a burden on Pacifica when they have gout. It stops them from working. You know, it's really debilitating. The arthritis can be really cause deformities. And then the other question that came out was one on rheumatic fever. You know, why is rheumatic heart disease so big in Pacifica and Māori? You know, and
Yes.
personal for some of those members in the Pacific
Yes.
Health Advisory Group as well. And so they came up with the question, and over the years, because we've been going for a few years now, is trying to work out the sort of the root causes, but also solutions that came from the community, with the support of the researchers. So I think that's kind of the easiest one.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the question came from the community, and they worked together with the researchers and the doctors to come up with a question and possible solutions to that question to help Pacifica Health. So building to the evidence, I think, you know, building to the evidence that what will work for Pacifica, and it's still a work in progress because we're still going.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, Ben, there's room for you. You know, there's an empty seat there for you if you want to join.
I'll put my hand up.
But I just love also, I mean, we're talking about Pacific doctors, but also seeing Pacific researchers. I'd not seen that before. That's great.
No, and that's right. And there's very few of them as well.
I know. There's plenty of jobs out there, guys.
Oh gosh, here we go.
And as I said, we need the evidence base to, you know, for us to change our practices or change our models of care. So we need people doing research to show us that evidence. So we can't all be working purely as doctors. We need people who actually look at, well, what you're doing is actually working. You know,
you need
how can we tweak it? And so, you know, health used to be really very much, you know, doctor, patient, doctor's right, doctor tells you what to do. Now we're realizing, no, we're not always right.
It's all about evidence-based research,
Yeah. And when it comes to having that sort of relationship of how to make things work, especially because a lot of the chronic diseases, you can be well for quite a long time before it gets to tipping point that you're really, really sick and unwell. And it's like, how do we help empower our people to keep themselves well so they don't get to that tipping point, you know? And I think research and having the answers coming from the people will actually help shift that. And I think that's probably the next sort of, you know, how everything moves so slowly. I'm going to say it's going to be beyond my time, but I think we're moving there. I think, you know, that's something that the future doctors in 30, 50 years time will be a bit more clued up about, because we're only just starting now, really.
No, you've actually touched on two questions we were going to ask, so we don't need to ask those two questions. I think I'll go straight to this one because I know your time is precious, and I'm looking at the time going, oh my gosh, is it nearly an hour done I'm
talking Ben.
No, it's not me.
Okay.
No, but it's such. One thing that teachers in RTLB would like to improve on is how to connect with Pacific families. From your point of view and from your expertise, do you have any advice on how we can better engage with our Pacific communities based on your experience of working with so many Pacific families?
I think it's treating them as people first, connecting with them as people first, getting to know a little bit about them before jumping into anything heavy or deep that you want them to be on board about. I think that's probably, you know, and that's that whole relationship thing that we were talking about before, isn't it? You know, sometimes it is useful to knowing a little bit about the background and where they come from, but listening, you know, I think that's the other thing that is really, really important for our people is being heard, you know, because you can jump in there and offer everything in the world, but if you haven't heard where they come from or what it is that they need, you're going to mismatch because what I want to give and what they need might be two different things.
True. Do you think this I'm just thinking, do you think this generation has a better understanding of, let's say, I'm gonna put it out there, our Pacific generation right now compared to our parents or our grandparents? Do you think they have this generation has a better understanding of neurodiversity?
I think it's still early days. I think it's still really brand new, to be honest, still. I think if you still ask them what that means, a lot of our people even right now wouldn't know what that means, to be honest. Because it's a medical term, terminology, language. So even even the medical will probably struggle a little bit, sorry. But then again, if you're trying to ask the everyday mum or dad, even if they are Pacifica, it's still rather relatively new term. It would be more that you'd have to explain what does this mean for you or your family, or what does that mean for your young person in your household, if you know what I mean, that might be needing, who has challenges because of what's going on with their neurodevelopment and things like that. I think it's coming. I think that's another. It'll become more familiar as future goes on. But I think it's still brand new, to be honest. I don't think they've got a complete grasp on it. No, sorry.
Yeah. There's still a journey. There's still a long way to go for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think the thing is, we're probably more open. If we have that communication, if we've got that connection, we have a better openness to understanding or receiving some information, which means that we are different or not the same, because we are already different and individual already, you know what I mean? But it's the normalizing of it all, you know? Yes, and going that it's okay, you know, and it's funny because we're very good at that actually, specific and normally, you know what I mean? We do actually, it doesn't matter because our loved ones, our families, we're always accepting, that's great, but accepting that being the norm, or accepting and actually knowing that there's other things that can be done to actually help them have a better future than the one that they're destined to have now if we just love. Because that's the thing, isn't it? Us Pacifica, we love. That's
a great answer. That's a great answer. I'm going to use that. Sorry. That's awesome.
And then it goes back again to what I said, is, you know, sharing is caring, knowledge is power. And, you know, the more we can give out, but we've got to give it in a way that they can understand and accept and utilize so they can continue to love, eh?
Dr. Hina, thank you for that. So, you know, I'm always thinking about, you know, Georgia, and what are some ways that parents can prepare their children for school from a health perspective? What are some of the important things parents need to remember in your experience?
It's interesting because you're saying parents, and I'm like, I'm on both sides. I think because I'm still probably coming from a professional brain head, you know, because I always think the parents are always trying to do the best that they can with the situation they have at hand. You know what I mean? And I don't think there's. I'm going to try and make sure I word this correctly. From a health perspective, it's what we do at home, but it's also, I think school can be involved in that health area as well. So I think I'm getting confused, you know, I mean, when you ask me that question, I'm a little bit confused, to be honest, because I don't think there's any parent who doesn't want their child to do well or not to be healthy. You know, my experience is actually parents are very caring. They want them to be well. They want them to be healthy. You know, they want them to succeed, but maybe they haven't had that themselves. And so maybe they haven't got the tools. And so how do you suddenly tell them what they need to know for their children? You know what I mean? So it's got to come back to that research again.
What does the research say? No, that's fine.
No, I'm just thinking of the context of where we live in South Auckland, where we know that our parents these days, we've got the lowest median income. You know what I mean? That affects that our parents are working all the time. They may be working 2 or 3 jobs. It maybe it's grandma, grandpa who's looking after them, or auntie even, or sister or cousin. And I think it needs that whole. It's holistic, but the whole community, so I guess, approach to it, and being that's okay, but that means that every single person that's involved in that child's life actually needs to be on that journey as well. And so putting, that old saying, we know that it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
I think that's what we have to apply here then, I guess, is realizing, it's the parents, but it's not just the parents. And, and so it is everyone in the whānau, but it's also those that they interact with. So that is also the teachers. As well.
Yes, because it is. It's a collaborative effort. It is a collaborative effort.
Yeah. And and you can just go back to the islands. I go back to Tongan and stuff, and you hear the funny stories, and we laugh, when it's your auntie down the road that found out that you're wagging or whatever. And so everyone's involved in making sure that you're not wagging anymore and that you're attending school. So whereas here we've become so one-on-one, I guess. It's mum and dad in school, and forgotten though actually that's not how it doesn't work that way all the time for everybody. It may be that it's a wider a whānau who's helping to raise this child, and how do they interact, because you might be having auntie dropping off, but actually the rest of the day they're actually at grandma's house, and at night they're going home to mum and dad, so
that's right, you're right.
So I don't think there's one strict, but what I would like if I was going to say what I'd like this government, if I can go that far, is, to have health more intertwined into schools and education. Because this is something I didn't mention before, but I actually started my primary school in Niue. My dad got a job there, so I lived there for 3 years since I did my, junior years in Niue.
Wow.
But one of the things that they did there was that we brushed our teeth at school, and we had this big issue in South Auckland.
They do that in Japan. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, why can't we do that here? You know what I mean? So it's not just heavily reliant on the parents, it's become a social norm, the things that actually help us to keep well. There's lots of things in health that we could do in collaboration with school and health, but it's also with the whānau. So it's, you're parenting from all areas.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Sorry.
Good idea.
Oh, God. Oh, awesome. Hey, Dr. Hinamaha, where do you sit? Okay, typical question you get in the interview. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Ooh, I'll still be working. We were always trying to improve and change our models of care. As I said, there's very few of us Pacifica, but also there's very big shortage at the moment of doctors in general in New Zealand and doctors in primary care. So I'm very much, as I said, we're a teaching clinic, and we're also teaching those who are not traditionally registered workforce, who have lived experience, to increase their skill set and, give them the opportunity to work in health.
It's amazing. I think it's amazing.
Before, I was quite excited, some of our colleagues here who've actually moved on, they've moved on because, they came into health because they had the opportunity, they had a taste to trial a little bit of something, and then gone, right, I'm now going off to do nursing. Right, I want to go off and do social work. Now I want to do psychology.
Awesome.
So to me, I see that as success when anyone leaves us and are going to improve their future, income, well-being, household economics, because they're continuing to grow. So 5 years, I'd like to say that we're doing that a lot more. And it's becoming a lot more normal with other clinics across the country. It is starting, as I said before, that kaiwhina, those that lived workforce who don't traditionally have the, health education. We are now looking at, as a system, not me personally, but as a system, Te Wharaora now looking at giving those people micro-credentialed. So that also helps them to have their skill set acknowledged, which is great, and continue their education. So I've gone a long way around saying 5 years. I'm excited for the next 5 years, even though I'm still working in health. But hopefully we see that we're working better cohesively, using the limited resources we have, using our people, and getting them into health. And it doesn't necessarily have to be as a doctor or a dentist, or just getting them into health, because being part of the wider edge community contributing to health will help improve income outcomes for our people. I might not see it in exactly 5 years, but I'm hoping that we start that so that in the next 10, 20, 30 years, it's the norm,
I think it's a great idea. I think it's an awesome what you're doing. It should be a model that should be used in most institutions.
I'm not alone doing it. A lot of the other Pacific providers are doing it as well. So I'm not sharing anything new. This has been aspirational for some of the other Pacific providers. It's just that it hasn't been out there and accepted that this is what we can do, that we can use our mamas and aunties who have that lived experience to come in and help support health. That's something that now is becoming a little bit more normalized. But, in the Pacific family household, that's normal, eh? You need advice, who do you go to? Your mama, your nana,
your mom, your nan, uncle, auntie.
Dad, your uncle. Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that
Awesome.
contributes to your well-being. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sometimes you go to Dr. Google, but Dr. Hina, do you have any resources or readings or books that you would recommend to, I don't know, teachers or learning support or anybody? The things that stick out on your mind.
For health information, because as you just mentioned, everyone loves to go to Dr. Google.
Yes.
And sometimes we have to, but I would say a safe place to look up safe health information, which is evidence-based, which is actually open to the public. It has zero data, so it means even if someone has no internet on their phone because they've got no credit, they can actually still access the website. It's called Healthify. So it's a New Zealand website that has basically almost any sort of health condition that you can think of. It is generally in common everyday language. There might be some things, but it can help trigger your conversation with your doctor or family members. It's got simple things from what you can do for for eczema, what can you do for asthma, Not that we're saying to self-treat, but just saying if you need more information, you can go have a look at it. And so I think that's probably the big thing, because you alluded to, is that a lot of people going to social media, Googling, finding
TikTok.
a lot of health information, and with, artificial intelligence, AI coming along, doing diagnosis and stuff.
Big thing right now. Yeah, it's a big thing.
So computers can get really, really smart, but I think you're still going to need a person behind it.
That's
so
right.
when I have patients who come to me and they've said, I think I've got this because I Googled it, and I'm like, And I'd have to tell them, yeah, you're correct. You do have those symptoms, but it's the context of the symptoms that make the diagnosis that you think you have not correct. And actually, we're going down this pathway. It's not always bad when they come with it, because then it has to make us as clinicians think, well, how do I show you that's not what you've got? How can I prove it? You know what I mean? So you need a brain. So it's not a bad thing that people look up, but it's better if they're going to do stuff, because sometimes, we hear about self-treating, at least they can get it from safe information, of what they can do, because there's lots of things that we can do for ourselves that help keep us well, that doesn't need to have to see a doctor for a prescription or something. And I think that website would help. That website probably would help with that.
Awesome.
Oh, awesome. We're going to move on. We're going to move forward quickly, and enough of the hard questions. So we're going to. What's a whakatauki, or a langa upu, or a quote that motivates you, that inspires you to just to get on with it, get into it, just do it.
Well, I mean, I think some of the ones that I've kind of just been saying right through, isn't it? Education is power, sharing is caring. It's all along those lines, that probably gets me going. Oh, this is probably my tongue coming out of me, God willing,
Put the fear God again.
Say a little prayer, and if it doesn't work out, it's not meant to be.
I use that all the time.
I don't think I have one, because I'm influenced by so many, different people. It'll be my mum, my best friend, it'll be my colleagues, so it might be actually what is right for that time and moment.
Okay,
I've got a quick question for you, Dr. Hina. What is some advice that you would either give your younger self, or maybe send out to Pacific youth? So you can choose.
I was going to say, enjoy your youth, but now I was going to say...
I agree. Don't become an adult too fast.
But I think some of the things I kind of said at the beginning, it's okay not to know straight away what you want to do. It's okay to explore and try different avenues. We all take different roads to get to the end, where we want to be, different paths to the same end. I really do think, we all have made failures, we've all made mistakes. It is okay. Just try to learn from it and move forward. Don't get stuck in those failures or mishaps, because actually those things grow you as a person.
Yes.
And sometimes all of us will cringe at something we did in the past, go, oh man, but you weren't the person you are today without having those cringy moments. I think with our young, I feel sorry for our youth these days. We didn't have internet, we didn't have social media, and so they're bombarded every day with what is normal, and actually the normals that we're seeing aren't real sometimes. And so they're not, everyone puts up a perception that we want others to see. And, especially as young people or teenagers, we already have that internal anxiety.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, we're always worried that someone's looking at me, someone's judging me. Oh, am I part of the cool group? All those things don't matter when you get old like us. But at the time,
that's right.
Okay.
You care less.
But for our youth, the struggle is real. They really are feeling a little bit lost at times. And I like to say that's okay. You know what? You've only been on this earth, whatever, 13 years,
that's
15
years. That's
years.
right.
We've got so much more living to go yet. And we need to live as long as our Balangi cousins. So I need you to get to 80 and 90. Okay.
Yes.
So you're allowed to make mistakes along the way.
That's right. I like
that. Okay, Ben, you're allowed to make mistakes. Thanks, Dr.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Brian.
Say that to him every week.
Shush, that's it up. Hinamaha, someone who inspires you.
Well, as I said, I don't have just one person. It's always been lots of people, people around me who always inspire me, depending on what they're doing and what's going on in their lives. So when I was younger, it was, as I said, my GP, when I found out he retired, realizing in reflection, I'm like, actually, this dude really knew who we were and how to connect with us. And he wasn't even of our culture either. So, as I said, you don't have to be exactly the same to know somebody and connect with somebody. But he obviously knew how to talk to us, find out about us and know us and connect with us. At times it's been my best friend Fiona, who's supported me through my own struggles and stuff at that time, and showing me that actually there's another day coming. It is, there's other things going forward. Don't hold on to the past. My husband, oh my gosh, I know it sounds really cheesy now, but see, they're all people that are close. It's not, my husband, man, he is so strong in his faith in the Lord. He is so strong in his language and culture. Like it just sets me in awe. Like I'm like, he's always in awe of what he knows who he is and where he comes from.
Shout out to hubby. Shout out to hubby.
Anywhere. Yeah. But but
got a good man.
The opposite side is myself, and like what I said with the youth, we are lost. We don't know who we are, and that's whether you have language or not. As a teenager, if you reflect back, we're all over the place. And so sometimes we need reminding of that, that hang on, we were once young, and yes, we did think that way, and they will get through it. And how do we support it? At the moment, it depends on what's going on in my life, who advised me at that time. Sorry, so, but it's usually
that's good enough.
around me.
All good.
That's good.
It's so good that you get to work with your best friend. I mean, I got to work with Ben. So we're just gonna do a wheel of
okay. Oh yeah.
I'm just kidding, Ben.
Ditto,
you know I am.
Ditto.
Ben, can you see the wheel of questions?
Can you see the wheel?
I can see the wheel, but I see my forehead now as I look really close.
No, don't worry, because the writing will come up. But I always forget to explain where these questions come from. These come from a card game, a Pacific card game called La Langa. And there's levels 1 to 5, and then it's all about building those connections and relationships. So I'll just acknowledge them. So we just spin the wheel, and then a question comes up, and then we all have to answer it.
Got a question, random question.
And if you don't like the question, you can veto it.
Say pass.
And the question is, what's the weirdest thing a visitor has done at your house?
Oh.
What?
The first thing that came to my mind, that's really random, mate. You just go, the first thing that came around, I was like, the guy who blew up our kettle, he forgot to put water in it.
Are you sure he wasn't a cousin?
No, it's distant family.
Oh gosh, yeah. No.
I can't think of anything. Ben?
Oh yeah, I can. Had my daughter's friends come over, never met them, went straight to our kitchen cupboard, started helping themselves. And then when they grabbed the food, they turned around and said, "Hi, my name is," while they're eating the food. And I was like, "Oh, I'm glad you feel comfortable in my house." Welcome. But you know what? And the funny thing was that they were Filipino, and one was European. And I thought, oh, you know what? I'm glad you actually did that, because it makes you feel like our home is your home. And if you're that happy to go and help yourself to our food, we must give you some sense of safe. Yeah, this must be a safe space for you. So yeah. But I thought it was weird, but I never said it.
That's an awesome story.
It is weird, those cultural norms, because like I remember that we always take our shoes off, and then this guy just walks straight in, with his shoes on and stuff. I was like, that's not culturally appropriate for us.
Yeah
a little bit weird.
To you that would be weird to you, but to them no.
Yeah, I know.
Think about that one. Yeah.
But when you come to a house and you see all these shoes outside the front, and you just walk past them and walk in anyway. Okay. Right, we'll just do one more. So Ben, don't do that again. Okay, right, here we go. I'm just joking.
See, Hinamaha, this is what I have to work with.
Yeah, same. Okay, who in your family or group of friends is the biggest fiapoko? Know it all? And tell us a funny story of them acting like they know more than Google.
Oh God.
And try to do it without saying their name.
My family is so small. They'll know. I'll have to pass.
Okay, do you know what? I'll spin again. I
don't want to out them.
No. Yeah, they'll recognize. Okay, I've already spun it. Yeah. There you go.
I had a good answer for that one, but I won't say it. Sorry, Dad. I won't say it.
What is the weirdest thing you found in your friend's house?
Oh my gosh.
What did I find in your house?
That's a big question.
Was when I went into your fridge. Oh no, that was something else.
Weirdest thing you found in your friend's
I can't think of anything weird. They always got nice stuff.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, we went overseas, and we stayed at my wife's cousin's house, and he's Dutch. We slept in, we stayed in a room upstairs. In that room upstairs, he had a pet owl. I'm not joking, a pet owl and a boa constrictor. And just before we went to bed, he fed his boa constrictor a rat. And my wife and I were just staring at the glass because it was only separated between us and glass. And it was, and the boa constrictor was actually quite big. I think it was like about 4 feet at that time, which is quite tiny. But man, it freaked us out. Really freaked us out, especially when it started gobbling up the rat. That was just, that was so wrong. Just wrong.
No.
Hinamaha, your turn.
You have any weird friends, Dr. Hina?
Somebody else's house. Maybe my stuff.
Okay.
You went, oh, that's where that is. I've been looking for that
for the last couple of years.
Medical instruments in the house.
One hadn't noticed it was missing until I found it.
There you go.
That's where my stethoscope is.
Yeah.
Okay, Ben.
Okay, the next one. This is a question that was asked by our last week's special guest. So last week we had who was it? It was
Board of Trustees chairperson.
Board of Trustees chairperson, and we asked her what would be the next question you would ask for your next, for the next person who we interview. So she's come up with this question to ask you, Hinamaha. The question is, if you had 1 week to live, what would you do with that week?
7 days.
7 days.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm quitting my job real quick.
That's what Ben said.
That's what I said. That's the first thing I'm going to do.
You just told us how much you love being a doctor. And now you just...
I love my job, but I'm going to have to tell them real quick. I ain't got long to talk. I'm sorry. As much as I love you.
I got no time for this.
I'm gonna do some spiritual healing and make sure that I'm ready to go. So I have to let them know. I'm finishing work. Loved ones, I'm letting you know. And I want to probably go somewhere peaceful and quiet. To be honest, for the very end.
Enjoy it.
Lovely.
I like it.
I kind of think about all my holidays and stuff, and I love going to the islands, but I don't like to go to the mainstream. I like to go to the outer islands where there's nobody and no people.
Nice.
So if I had 1 week to live, I'm quitting job. I'm flying straight over, telling the family it's all over. I'm the next 6 days in peace.
That's fantastic. That's
I like
great.
that.
Okay,
So,
Dr. Hina, you get to ask a question for our next person that we interview.
and
So
that's
just
next
think of
week.
any question. You don't know who they are or what they do. Just what would you like us to ask them?
Okay. If you were an animal, which animal would you be and why?
Okay, now the twist is we have to answer that question now.
If
So
you
if you were
an
an animal, what animal would you be and why?
Okay, I'll go first.
Yep.
I'd have to be a bird because I just want to fly. I've always had that dream where I was flying, and it's always been a reoccurring dream. Oh, I'm flying. So I would like to come back as a bird.
You've never been on a plane? Or okay, right. Fair enough.
Brian.
Airfares are very expensive these days.
Just ruin the moment, mate. Just ruin the moment.
Do you want to go next? Or...
Oh yeah, I'm a real dog person. I love dogs. I sometimes think he's got it pretty sweet. So I'm like, man, if I'm coming back as something next time, I'm coming back and a dog where I'm loved, though. Oh, I want to be the dog in the household that loves me.
Nice.
My dog's my baby, so.
Oh, lovely.
Do you have one? Have you got one?
Yeah, I've got a dog. Yeah, I've got a mixed breed. They said he was a lab. He's a lab cross, but I think that was a lie. But I took that as a registration because he kind of looks happy. But he's the most passive little thing, medium thing. He's quite heavy now. He's at 30 kilos. But yeah, he just gives us so much joy. You know, he just makes our day. You know, he keeps us fit. So we have to walk him.
Yes.
He's not a barker either, so he doesn't bark.
Oh, fantastic.
If he barks, it's only if someone's at the door. But other than that, yeah. And then I just see him always just really relaxed. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, man, that's just sweet.
That's the life.
He's enjoying it.
Oh, that's the life.
Feed me, owner.
We have a neighbor with a very little dog. And then I think they take the dog inside. And so every day that they go to work, they put the dog outside and that little dog yaps at every single movement, every single thing all day, like hours and hours. Oh, it's so
sad to hear.
Good luck.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So
I didn't mean to. Great. I ruined both your questions. So I would, in terms of an animal, I would probably be an elephant. And if you watch any documentaries about elephants, they're very family orientated, and they're always about the herd, and they always stick together, and they always supporting each other and stuff like that. And then, yeah, my favorite animal would be an elephant. So that's me. Well,
and they have long-term memories too. They remember everything.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Hina, we're just about to come to a close. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our group, with whoever's going to watch this podcast? And there are people that watch this podcast, just to let you know.
Whoever makes it this far.
Whoever makes it.
I mean,
is there any final thoughts here?
People sort of, sayings and whatnot, but it is so true, never give up, try things. It's okay to fail, learn from it, and just keep moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Malo abito, Dr. Hina, thank you so much for having a talanoa with us today. My biggest takeaway from what you've said is just the generosity of you and the humility of you and the ability to help people, and that there's a real need for Pacific people in the health sector, and that you don't have to always just be a doctor. You can be a wide variety of jobs, and they're all needed. And if you could just say that to our parents, that would be fantastic. That always want us to be a doctor. We appreciate all that you do for the Pacific community, and we love that you're so generous that you could come and give us some of your time today. Let me practice my Tongan. Mauha aho lelei. Have a great day. Ben?
Dr. Hinamaha, a huge big thank you for for giving up your time to come on to this podcast today, and for sharing the amazing work you do in your space as a Tongan, as a medical practitioner at Southpoint Family Doctors. The service you provide for everyone, not just Pacific people, but everyone in the community, is greatly acknowledged, and we just wish you the very best to you and your colleagues. Malo opito.